Pleasure to recognize our resident pharmacist on our committee, Mr. Secretary, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Mr. Secretary, it's been almost 14 months now since the COVID-19 pandemic started, and it began in China. We know that, but we still don't know the origin as far as whether it started at the wet market or if it started at the Institute of Virology, and we haven't even had an investigation into telling us this, and we need to get to the bottom of it, obviously, and I'm sure you agree with that. We need to know so that we can prevent this from happening again. That's crucial. I want to ask you very quickly, can you just give me your perspective on how the U.S. and the global community, because this in fact impacts all of us, how the global community can hold China accountable and ensure that a credible investigation into the origin of the COVID-19 can be conducted?
Congressman, thank you for the question. I agree with you. We want to make sure that there is a transparent process that's based on evidence that helps guide us in trying to take a look at this and dig down deep. We want to have accountability. We are now back on stage with the World Health Organization, working with them, and we provided some guidance to them on what we think would make for a critical, thorough, comprehensive review of the circumstances behind COVID-19. And so look forward to partnering with you as we try to work with our international partners to make sure we get to the bottom of these things.
Do you think that China and the World Health Organization should be pushed to allow an investigation into the possible origins, whether it be the wet market or the lab?
Well, we've already been pushing the WHO in trying to make sure that we do a thorough assessment of this. We have been in communication with China on any number of issues relating to COVID, and we're going to continue to push because at the end of the day, I think you'll agree with this. We have to understand how COVID surfaced. We have to understand how it spread so we can try to make sure we're prepared for the next time we have this kind of a public health crisis.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, in 2017, this committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, was instrumental in enactment of legislation that would allow consumers to have access to over-the-counter hearing aids. And it was bipartisan legislation, as is often the case out of this committee. I submit that this is the most bipartisan committee in Congress. And on the bipartisan basis, the House and the Senate repeatedly inquires of the FDA on the status of this regulation. But ever since last year, month after month, the FDA just says it's a priority, but we can't tell you where the regulation is at. I'm hearing, and I've been told that there are rumors that the regulation can't move until we have a permanent FDA commissioner. Is that true?
First, that's not true. And secondly, if I can just say that my mom doesn't live in Georgia, but if she did, she'd vote for you right now because she's one of those victims of these hearing aid marketing schemes and is anxious to hear my answer just as you are. And so I look forward to working with you because we're going to get that out. We don't have to wait till we have a permanent commissioner. It is an important rulemaking. And we will work closely with you on trying to make sure that Americans, if they're going to participate in purchasing these hearing aids, they get what they're supposed to get.
Do you have a date certain that you can tell me? I mean, is it?
I said, if I could tell you a date certain, I probably would have to give folks a date certain on a lot of other matters. We're working on it, but I can tell you, I think my mom is probably going to push me harder than you are on getting a date certain.
Understood. Is it still undergoing review with HHS, or have you finished your review and is it going to OMB yet?
It's still undergoing review.
Any idea when that'll be completed?
I could get back to you on that, Congressman.
Please, if you could get that to me in writing, I would appreciate that very much. Very quickly, I wanted to ask you, antimicrobial resistance. This is a major problem, and it's a major public health, and it's a national security threat. The CDC estimates almost 3 million Americans suffer from antimicrobial resistant relevant infections, and annually we have over 48,000 deaths resulting from those infections. And we've seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, as it continues, that a sizable number of patients are suffering from secondary infections, with the CDC identifying resistant secondary infections outbreaks as COVID-19 units. This reinforces, in my opinion, the urgent need for access to effective antimicrobial products as part of our pandemic preparedness and response. Can you commit to me, Mr. Secretary, that working together to address the antimicrobial resistance in a way that creates pull incentives for the development of a new countermeasure?
Absolutely commit to that. I think all of us are deadly afraid of what happens if we overuse some of these medicines and we're not prepared in case there is this resistance that does develop. And so absolutely look forward to working with you on that.
We need to work with that, but we also need to work with the overprescribing of certain antibiotics as well. As a pharmacist, I can tell you that was a problem. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield.